We had a story we wanted to take a closer look at, and it's one of the bigger news stories that we've seen this week because change is in the air, and it is, of course, licensed. The news came out of VMware by Broadcom as they announced a simplification of their licensing model. The first change is that VMware Cloud Foundation has had the subscription cost cut in half, and additional support levels have been added to help with the activation and lifecycle management process. VMware vSphere Foundation is also available as a subscription offering with several add-ons that have become available. Notably missing is the option for perpetual licensing, which was removed in this simplification. Also removed were any hybrid purchase programs and anything not subscription-based. If you're a customer that already has a perpetual license, you can continue to use it, but you will be unavailable to buy support for that license until you transition to that subscription model. There's been a lot of discussion going on about this into the community, and a lot of people are wondering what this means for VMware customers. Stephen, let's take a closer look at this.
Absolutely. This has been one of the subjects that the Tech Field Day delegates have been discussing in private. One of the things that people don't really get a view of because, hey, it's private, is the fact that all of the Tech Field Day delegate community has these wonderful discussions about what's really impacting the world of IT practitioners, IT technologists, basically where the rubber meets the road. And those voices aren't often heard. So what I wanted to do was actually bring in a voice of that world, a voice of the practitioner. So why don't we call Keith Townsend from CTO Advisor and Futurum Group in here?
Gotta scoot over a little bit. Let me
there you go.
Join the conversation.
Welcome to the party, Keith.
Thanks for having me.
So what do you think about this decision by VMware to simplify licensing?
So the licensing was complicated. I worked for VMware for a short time, and I was warned when I came aboard there's hundreds of SKUs. That has now been simplified, which will increase the time to decrease time to quote, and increase this time to value that customers are looking for. So simplifying the SKUs, I'm all on board for it.
Keith, was the perpetual license an option that a lot of people are making hay about? Was that something that was really popular with customers?
That is something that was really popular. Actually, in an adjacent software decision, Citrix decided to abandon perpetual licenses when they went private. And I talked to many of CTO that was extremely upset about that because they had just renewed their perpetual licensing. And Citrix not only told them that they couldn't renew perpetual licensing, but was much more aggressive and said that basically if you're on a year-by-year support perspective, support agreement, you cannot renew support. So customers are very, very sticky. If you look at folks like Nutanix has had a tough time transitioning to subscription licensing. VMware has wanted to do it for years, but customers have been extremely resistant to it.
It's interesting you bring up this topic of perpetual licensing because that's what software used to be. I mean, enterprise software used to mainly be perpetual, but now all companies want subscription licensing for a couple of reasons. Well, all vendors want subscription licensing for a couple of reasons because, basically it guarantees a revenue stream, which looks really good. And because it looks really good, it tends to bump up their stock price because, they have all this recurring revenue coming in. Also, it means that they can kind of renegotiate those contracts, add new features, new licensing levels, and all sorts of things every year without having to resell things from scratch. Customers love perpetual licenses for the exact opposite reason, because it gives them that sense of confidence. And of course, this affects us in the real world as well. One of my favorite applications on iOS just switched from a perpetual to a subscription-based scheme, and everybody's all up in arms about that. I can understand why people love perpetual licenses. However, I wonder too if in some cases it may make sense to switch from a perpetual license financial sense, because truly, was the perpetual license a better deal? Now, I understand, right, that VMware may not have announced all the pricing for these things, but I think there's an expectation that they're going to be pretty aggressive in pricing this stuff, right?
Yeah, I think the announcement was that the VMware Cloud Foundation, so 2 layers, basically vSphere Essentials, if you're a small shop, and you don't need HCX, NSX, VCF, and all of the ARIA operation stuff, then you have that low level opportunity. And then that whole package of VCF, if you take the whole package, I think that's better than a 50% price reduction. The question is, do you need it all?
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of customers may find that they don't need it all, and maybe they might even save money in this situation. Why do you think VMware and under Broadcom would be lowering prices? I think that's counter to what a lot of people expected.
So, if you think about it, you talked about this perpetual license advantage. vSphere has historically been a very sticky platform when it comes to versioning and updates. Customers simply don't update their vSphere environments. So if you're finding yourself on vSphere 6.5, which I think has been in a life for a couple of years, and there's a lot of vSphere 6.5 out there, why in the world would you buy a subscription if you're just not updating your software? And you're already out of support and you've been more or less fine. VMware needs both a carrot and a stick to say, hey, you can be in support. You will get features that you should care about and you should update security and protection against malware. Pretty good argument for updating your software. This gets customers kind of activated, those customers who have bought perpetual licenses but not have bought support, gives them kind of an incentive to do some consistent upgrading and get support.
So, Keith, I guess the question is, because we've seen this with a lot of other subscription-based programs, Microsoft Office being one of the main examples of this, they've gone away from versioning. You're not running Office 2023, you're just running Office, and it's constantly getting these trickle-down updates. I challenge you to go find a Google Chrome version number. They don't really exist anymore. Do you see a future where, because Broadcom has effectively said, in order to be current with your VMware subscription, you have to be on a subscription model, we're not even going to track this anymore. So you're not running VMware 6.5, you're not running VMware 7, you're just running VMware, and you're not going to have this big cutover every 2 or 3 years when a new piece of software is released with this huge CapEx expenditure to get all your stuff up to date. You're just going to get these new features that you can activate and install every couple of months.
Yeah, they need the mechanism for that, right? Because right now VMware is a fat install and it's not a streaming service. But we see evidence of this not just within other enterprise software companies. SAP made the controversial announcement that they're not going to innovate on the perpetual and on-prem license version anymore. And then we see it in VMware and VMC on AWS. There is no version of VMC on AWS. You just get VMC on AWS. VMware has been long positioned to go this route, so we will see, I think, this loosening or disappearance of versioning. You're just on VMware Cloud Foundation, or you're on vSphere Essentials, and you get the features associated with those entitlements.
I think another interesting angle here is, as we saw, VMware went to a lot of their customers before the acquisition and said, hey, there's an acquisition coming here. Maybe you should sign up now. I wonder if a lot of companies did that. I mean, if a lot of companies went and got a perpetual license right before the acquisition, and what this means overall to companies that are in the midst of an acquisition, and their companies are saying, they go to their clients and say, hey, maybe you should buy now instead of buying later.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an unofficial number or official number, but I heard the number. Around 50% of VMware's largest companies, customers renewed early for that very reason, which kind of puts on the next level challenge. I've managed environments where we went from a perpetual license to a subscription model, and it is a painful change. It is a difficult conversation to have with the CFO, who you go into his or her office and says, we're going to pay for this software twice this year. We're going to, we're finishing out the CapEx of the software original perpetual license, and we're going to double the cost and start buying it subscription based. So to help ease that, VMware has dropped the price to help that transition, but it's a still very difficult transition. So those folks that bought the perpetual licenses and support for perpetual licenses now will have that difficult conversation as they amortize that purchase over or depreciate that purchase over the next 3 to 5 years, justifying moving. And I'm pretty sure there's a conversation that be had with Broadcom on some trade-in, buyback, etc.